Welcome to Discovering Dowsing.
In today's episode of Discovering Dowsing, we talk about Avebury, the vastness of Avebury, its stones, the outlying areas around Avebury, and how it makes us feel, how we like to enjoy it or perceive it, and also a little bit about the history and also sound.
Hello, David.
Hi, Alex. Good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you. We're here for our second episode of Discovering Dowsing. And we touched on Avebury and in our first episode and said how it might be good to explore Avebury. So this episode's about Avebury. And do you want to introduce us to Avebury from a dowser's point of view?
A dowser's point of view. This is interesting because I kind of sat and thought, what is it that has always intrigued me about Avebury energetically? And it's always been the ley lines. And it's best known for the Michael Mary ley line coming through both all three of the inner circles. And yet there's more than just the Michael Mary ley line that passes through. There's actually three pairs of ley lines that pass through Avebury in various different directions. Plus there's another dragon line that weaves its way through. And I think I'm correct in saying that in the southern circle where the obelisk is, there's a spring. I think that you mentioned. Did you mention that?
No.
Okay, that must have been somebody else that mentioned that. So yeah, I think it's like this healing kind of spring vortex energy that's to do with the underground water. So at some point somebody told me about that. It's not something that I've picked up on, but apparently if you stand over the top of the obelisk with your dowsing rod, the dowsing rod will just spin full circles. Which is really amazing, I think. Just to have this convergence of all these ley lines plus this vortex energy. And I'm sure that there is so much more to douse there energetically, but that's what I've kind of concentrated on. So, yeah.
Yeah, and for anyone listening, if they're not familiar with Avebury at all, it's a special place in Wiltshire in the UK, and it's an old site, the biggest stone circle in Europe, and there's much more to it. It's like a complex, isn't it? It's funny to go to if you've read about Avebury before you've been, and there's probably one of the most famous original writers, William Stukeley, who wrote extensively on it, mapped it in the 1700s, and he was a real passionate person to support Avebury and other sites. And do you want to talk a little bit about William Stukeley and the sort of history there of what he did and how it maybe helped Avebury's cause and maybe other stone monuments and circles causes?
Yeah, so he was an antiquarian. Basically, he started off as a doctor, and in his free time he would go and map these places, but he was finding it more and more financially difficult. So he stopped being a doctor and became a clergyman and worked for the church and found that he had more money and more free time. So his two biggest passions were Stonehenge and Avebury, although he did go to a lot of other sites. And he was from, I think, from the Derby area originally. And he was very artistic. He would sit in the landscape and make drawings of these different locations from different angles and build these pictures of how they sat in the landscape. And he also recorded how during that time that people were taking the stones, they were toppling them, they were firing them, then throwing cold water on them to break them up and build with them. They were basically making money from these stones to build houses, churches, right, so on. And eventually he managed to pass an act with other people. He managed to pass an act in Parliament to stop this from happening. So it's due to people like him that we still have what we have left in the land. So he was very, very important in Avebury. And he even drew the pathways of the West Kennet Avenue going up to the sanctuary and then heading west out of Avebury, going to towards Beckhampton. There's speculation to whether his drawing is accurate in that direction. Okay. Yeah, archaeologists say that it stops about a kilometre and a half outside of Avebury on the west side. Okay. But basically the avenues were two stone rows that were almost like processional routes. And what William Stukeley was saying, that it was almost like a snake. So it would come from the west direction of the tail, go into Avebury, and then head south out of Avebury and go all the way up to the head at the sanctuary. So the sanctuary was, for those that don't know the area, that particular line was 2.5 kilometers long, and that was an inner wooden circle, so wooden posts, and then an outer stone circle. Nowhere near as big as Avebury. I think maybe 30 meters across in diameter.
Yeah. Like yeah, and it feels quite intimate, that setting, yet gently powerful. It's a really lovely place to visit the sanctuary.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've not spent a lot of time there. The last time I was there, I was running and I got swept off my feet by the mud. So like a turtle. Yeah.
And so Avebury is this massive stone circle and complex. Stukeley did some really helpful research and support and advocating for it and Stonehenge.
Yeah.
Clearly a passionate man. And before then, somebody decided to build a road through it and put a village pub in and some houses. So we've this, you know, for those of us who might be a bit romantic about the idea of these lovely stone circles, and I'll definitely hold my hand up for being one of those people. When I first came across Avebury, and I was so excited, wow, this is going to be amazing and epic. I can't wait to douse there. And then I looked at the Ordnance Survey maps and saw that there was a road going through it. And not just a road, it's a busy road going through the centre of Avebury. There's a village that's been basically plonked in the middle of a massive stone circle. And I was kind of on going there quite upset because I felt like I just felt a bit sad that this had happened to such an amazing, grand, majestic scale stone circle. And I also felt for the people living in the houses on top of those supercharged energy lines, because that's not going to be restful. They're quite potent, those energies. That I felt sort of a bit stricken, I guess, and then over time I kind of got over myself and just connected with the stones and the energies and just dowsing around. I've been a few times. You've been pretty much a regular,
Yeah,
haven't you? Uh,
yeah,
and so how did you approach Avebury the first time you went there? What did you
yeah.
find?
I didn't like it. The first time I remember, I can't actually remember when it was. I think it was in my 20s,
Yeah,
mid kind of 20s. And I remember going into the car park and it was just a grass field.
yeah.
And yeah, there's something that just didn't feel right to me. And that's not how I feel now. I live 10 minutes up the road from Avebury now, and I go there every week. And rain or shine, I go there. Uh, there's something about the stones there that they almost speak to you. If you spend enough time with a stone and just sit and are still, they almost give you messages about the earth, about yourself, whatever the message is. You just need to take that time and be still, and something will come up. And
Mm,
that's something, yeah, truly incredible about Avebury.
mm. That's powerful when you say that as well, David. Just
Mm,
because I guess a, a fair amount of people might go to Avebury, walk around, have a look at the stones, and walk up the avenue, and then go to the pub for some lunch, or
yeah,
that kind of thing, which is fine and perfect, and then for anyone who has that bit more time and space to actually sit and contemplate and be open to receiving information from being in proximity to the stones and the energy lines that are running around.
yeah,
They're like internet superhighways of information, aren't they?
definitely. Yeah,
And if you are allowing yourself to be that antenna to tune into that channel of whatever that line information is there to help you, it's a sort of co-creation, isn't it? It's a connection and a dialogue, an inner dialogue in the stillness. It's quite beautiful.
for
The
sure. Yeah,
the energy I've sensed going round is very soft and nourishing and nurturing, um, receptive, and knowing. It feels like a really deep knowing sense that I get there, um, and love as well. There's that sort of,
mm,
yeah. I feel really good about when I've been to Avebury. And the other impression that I've had when walking up the avenue is transcendental, uplifting feelings.
Mm.
Um, I've imagined with the avenue, apparently the stones are sort of masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine. They're sort of, receptive looking, phallic looking, they're sort of, apparently they're,
Yeah.
balancing.
Yeah.
But the avenue is quite a wide, um, open space, but it definitely has a direction of travel.
Yeah.
And I picture with the chalk landscape that is that part of Wiltshire, I just picture it in its heyday being without turf on it and a gleaming white avenue as a processional passageway to maybe take us to or from Avebury, the stone circle itself, and also towards Silbury Hill, England's sort of man-made mound that's some people call England's pyramid, and the West Kennet Long Barrow, those in the sanctuary, those other parts of the complex. So it feels very majestic walking down there.
Mm.
How do you feel when you go there? What have you found with your, 10 minutes up the road, amazing site?
So actually going along that avenue, you'll never see Silbury or West Kennet, and because you've got Windmill Hill right in the way. So you would have actually walked down along that valley and then turned up towards the sanctuary. And it's only when you start turning up towards the sanctuary that you would have seen maybe West Kennet, but certainly Silbury.
Mm.
But going down that avenue, there's a calm feeling for me. I just always feel very calm and just feel very grounded going along there. That's probably the thing that I feel the most there, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's lovely. And I remember doing a walking sort of guided tour with Peter Knight, who
Yeah.
I think until very recently has been based in and around Wiltshire. I think he's maybe moved, him and his partner have moved somewhere southwest recently, but he's really great at guiding you as a dowser round, or an earth energy sort of interested person, around the stones and seeing certain shapes, and
Mm.
you get certain impressions, and almost like there's a character in each and every stone. And if you,
Yeah.
again, if you sit or stand still and contemplate it and look at it from different angles, you can get a certain sense of something from each stone. They seem to represent different things.
Yeah.
And it's quite lovely to connect and see that a bit more. I don't know, have you noticed that in your journeys there?
Yes, I have. Some of them you can spot it a mile off, and then others it's almost like you need a change of light. I've
Mm.
often gone there first thing in the morning or last thing at night, so that dusk or dawn. And it's sometimes with the changing of the light that you see this different patterns, these different images appear on the rock. And that again is very mystical, adds to the mystery of the stones. Um, and we haven't kind of talked about the size of Avebury and the size of the stones. There's one stone in particular that is still there. It's 4.4 meters above ground. They reckon that there's about 3 meters below the ground and that it's probably about 100,000. No, I've written it down. Sorry. What was the weight? Yeah, about 100 tons in weight. And a lot of the other stones are around about 50 tons in weight. So it kind of gives you an idea of the size of these stones. And the fact that those stones were actually bought almost 2 miles over the hill from Fifield Down to Avebury. I always kind of, there's this thing with archaeology that these were prehistoric people, you know, they were wearing animal skins for robes, and they were using antlers to dig the ditches, all this kind of thing. And it's almost like they were a bit simple, almost, you know, in the way that they lived. But that can't be true, because they went to all this effort. And you were saying earlier, something like 1.5 million hours of construction in the way that we think that they would have done it. If you take the Beckhampton Avenue, Avebury Stone Circle, the avenue, West Kennet Avenue up to the sanctuary, there's between 500 and 600 stones, bearing in mind that they were all brought over the hill from Fifield Down.
Wow.
Some of them up to 100 tons. It starts to help you understand the size and grandeur of what they actually created.
It's so epic in scale.
Yeah.
It's pretty much incomparable.
Yeah.
For anything. The stones are so big, aren't they?
Yeah.
But they're kind of broad and sort of fulsome somehow.
Yeah.
And the ditches, the massive ditches that have been built around with that 1.5 million hours of labor, as we can best efforts guess, they wouldn't have done that just because it was a nice thing to do. They had reason and purpose, and they've done the exact amount of stones for a very specific reason, haven't they? There's just under 100 stones. Not all of them survived because they were burned off or broken up or whatever. But thanks to some great efforts for somebody restoring ones that have been buried in maybe the medieval era, you know, where they thought they were devil stones, so they buried them. There's Alexander Keeler,
yeah, however you pronounce it.
yeah. So there was some restoration work done.
Yeah.
To restore it to its former glory, so to speak. So
so Alexander Keeler, actually, his family were marmalade makers from Dundee, and he was left the family fortune. And he was an archaeologist, an aerial photographer, and he fell in love with Avebury. And he actually bought the manor. I think he bought over 900 acres of land in that area. So he bought the manor, the gardens of the manor, and Avebury Stone Circle itself, plus Windmill Hill, which is another hill, another windmill hill. There's a couple in that area, which has some round barrows on it. And he actually saved that from having massive radio antennas being built on it. And he set about doing a lot of digs around Avebury.
Mm.
There's a picture where they actually excavated the ditch, because the ditch has been, in the state that we see it now, has been backfilled a certain amount.
Okay.
So he actually excavated it down to its original depth, and the picture is incredible. We'll have to put it in the show notes.
Mm.
And yeah, he actually erected a lot of the stones that were buried there, and are the stones that are a lot of the stones that are seen today. And also there are concrete pillars that you might notice as you walk around, and they were placed by or he gave the instruction to place them, and they basically show where stones would have been, where they've got evidence of where a stone would have been.
Mm.
Yeah.
So is there any sense that you get walking around these stones why they were placed in the way they were? And there's something about sound, and it being maybe a sound temple of some kind. What do you discern? What do you get when you go around and you connect with that?
Yeah, I've not played with sound in the circle so much, and I don't know why I don't feel drawn. I haven't felt drawn to do that, because I go and play with sound in other places. I think possibly with Avebury, the sound elements of it are only partial, because obviously you've got the road running through it. You've got the buildings that run through it as well. So it's almost like a crossroads running through Avebury.
Yeah.
And the main road kind of snakes across, and then there's a road that cuts through it. And there are several buildings that are in the actual stone circle. Some of them have actually been removed. I think maybe 2 buildings have been removed. But I think it stops the full potential of its harmonic environment. I was reading this morning that part of the reason why they built these such high banks was to create a silent area. So if you imagine a plateau that's kind of hidden away from sound, direct sound, and then you have these 3 inner stone circles with really high and broad stones, that you then start to create echoes and reflections. So whether it's using the voice or whether it's using an instrument, these sounds are amplified inwards. And I say inwards, kind of amplified inwards, both into the earth, but into the people that are there whilst that sound's being created. And that does something to our aura, and then that energy is then spread outwards. So if you kind of if you can imagine that, that would be something really powerful. And like I say, you don't get that now. You've always got road noise. Even first thing in the morning, there's always traffic passing through. It's quite a busy road. So yeah, I do kind of, I should go there and play around a bit more with sound. I've used my voice a lot with the stones, and that's always very powerful. Whether it's oming or kind of chanting to the stones, there's there's a reflective quality within the stones, both on an energetic and an audio level.
Yes. Yes. And I remember on that tour we did with Peter Knight and his partner, she's a lovely sort of shamanic drummer, and we sat by one of the stones and drumming and listening and tuning in. And it did feel really, really nourishing and really deepening. And it felt like this is what we're meant to be doing.
Yeah.
It felt really good on every level. And like you say,
Yeah.
it does go into you. It does resonate within. And yeah, it feels like there's maybe hidden potential there, or what you're doing, David, with the omming, or sort of whatever toning or whatever sound you feel like you would wish to make in connection, in dialogue with these stones. They've got such wisdom to them.
Yeah.
They hold a lot of information. If we're just curious to discern that and tune into that with either our intuition or our dowsing rods or pendulum, whatever conversation we have permission to have with them, we can deepen our connection thanks to dowsing and our intuition. It's a wonderful experience. And when you walk up the avenue, when you feel the width of the energy lines there, I haven't been there and measured it within the past sort of year, but a couple of years ago when we were walking around with Peter, it was really wide, the energy line. And I think Rory Duff's been talking about how these dragon lines and energy lines are widening and widening at the moment. Have you noticed anything with that, with your dowsing?
I haven't been kind of keeping an eye on it, but one of the things that I've felt for a long time with energy lines is that they need us. They need our energy, and they need people to just go and visit and be in awe of the stones, have quizzical questions about why, and actually feed that energy back into the earth. If you look at it about being harmonics, it's about trying to feed something into the earth, and we need to kind of continue that. And we're doing it in a way of just going and visiting and going, wow, this is an amazing place. Let's take a quick Instagram shot of us being happy or doing something funny around a stone and then move on. And I kind of don't see anything wrong with that, because it does feed a particular kind of energy back into the land. Maybe we could be a bit more conscious about it. But actually, just having lots of people going there, right, is really important for the ley lines, for the site, for so many reasons. I think it's a positive thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you were visiting for the first time and you got your dowsing rods or your pendulum, where would you recommend somebody interested in dowsing starts their journey with Avebury? As the complex, let's broaden it out a little bit to the complex around Avebury.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. For me, I quite like coming from either West Kennet or Silbury and making that journey into Avebury, rather than just turning up at the car park and walking directly in. It's almost like if you start from Silbury Hill, for example, and then walk over the top of Windmill Hill, you start to get that view of West Kennet Avenue. and you start to get an idea of the size, and then you walk it along the avenue and into Avebury itself. And what I would do if I was going to Dowse, I would follow the outer bank around Avebury first. I would walk around it and then sort of work my way into the centre. And it's because of the roads, it's split up into 4 kind of sectors.
Yes.
And I find more peace in the northern sector, the northeastern sector. That less people go there because it seems like there's less stones, but it actually holds the northern inner circle there. And there I find that quite peaceful. As for dowsing, I think there's probably more to dowse in the southeastern part of Avebury. There's the southern inner circle. The outer stones, there's not many outer stones there, but there's more kind of inner stones in that part, and it has the obelisk there as well, with this vortex that I mentioned earlier. So that's kind of like the busier place to go and dowse. So I think it depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah, it's all, you know, and everyone's journey is unique to them, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so what resonates, what feels important for each unique dowser is their journey. And I've felt going to Silbury Hill really, really special. Going to the West Kennet Longbarrow, really, really amazing. It's a chamber, and you walk in, and it's near to the source of the River Kennet, and you go right into the chamber, and at the end it kind of opens out a little bit, and it feels like that's a very sacred place. And it's something, it's just lovely if you can just go in there and spend a bit of time centering and feeling the feels. And I know you do some sound healing work in there, don't you? What do you find yourself being drawn to with the Longbarrow?
Yeah. So, you know, when you look at Avebury and talk about it as a harmonic, almost instrument, if you look at West Kennet, West Kennet's the same, but it's very much more enclosed, and it hasn't had too much disruption to it. So when you actually go in there and you play, so there's 4 initial chambers on either side of a corridor, and then the large chamber at the end. And actually, if you play an instrument in each of the chambers, you have to be very precise in where you play in the smaller chambers for it to really amplify. But when you go into the large chamber, it's completely different. You can play an instrument in any direction, and it's just like woof. You're just encased in sound. I've taken a group of men in there and ommed as a group of men, and that was really powerful. So it feels like it's an amplifier for us to to help us almost reset ourselves, but also to kind of give back to the earth as well. It's that giving and taking. You know, we're not just going in there just to make sound. It's for ourselves, but we're also infusing that harmonious sound into the land as well. And that feels incredibly powerful and incredibly special.
Mm. That's beautiful. Thank you, David. I wonder if somebody listening isn't so familiar with Om and Omming. How would you describe it, and why would you make that sound?
Yeah, so the Om is supposedly the sound of the universe. It's the sound of creation. There are two different ways of doing the Om. There is the O and the M part. So Om. And then there is the other way of doing it, which is AOM. And the idea of that is, as I understand it, is to actually bring the energy kind of starting off down in the base sacral chakra with the A, and then bringing it up with the O into the heart chakra, and then bringing it right the way out with the M. But it's when you even if you're just doing the O and the M sounds, they're very different sounds, because the O is an open mouth sound, the M is a closed mouth sound. So the M, you kind of feel the vibration right the way down through the body.
You do.
Yeah. And they say when you do it for 20 minutes, that you actually start to reset the cells within your body. And that's quite an incredible and powerful thing. I actually did it with a circle of 11 people, 10 people, for 45 minutes solid. There was no let up in the Om. And that was incredibly powerful to hold that sound for that long. So yeah.
I've experienced a similar thing, and thanks for that explanation, because I've come across the spelling AUM, and when I've sort of made that it's quite along with the U, and then and like you're saying, there's sort of, it's like you're creating your own inner, in your mouth, a sort of resonance chamber. When it closes at the end. And when I've been doing half an hour with a sort of meditation group and in a circle, it does release and shift something, and you feel like you're going to a different state, not like a trance state as such, but a heightened, expanded state of being. And it feels very powerful when you do that in a group. And I can only imagine how that might feel in West Kennet Longbarrow. That intentional space with the energy that's already there to, again, dialogue, co-create with. And sound is such a powerful healing modality, and I'm noticing more and more sound coming through, and people talking about it, and sort of gong bars, sound bars, sound healing. It's just becoming more all around us, isn't it? It's a really good direction to be heading in.
Didgeridoo is what opened my mind to vibration, the fact that everything vibrates, just creating sound just from the vibration of your lips, and then being able to overtone with the throat and that breath. So it's a combination of creating sound and breathing, and it's the same with the Om. you're reoxygenating the blood, you're using the body to create sound. And it's the combination of these two things that is really powerful
Mm.
for us as beings. And if we can use an environment like West Kennet to help expand how that affects ourselves, then yeah, we have something truly powerful. And we have to understand that our voice is our God-given instrument, and there is no tone that you create with your voice that is out of tune. It's only in our modern society that we say, oh no, that's not in tune. Your voice is producing the exact tone that you need to heal your body. And when we start to understand that and accept that we are always in key for us,
Yes,
then we can really use the power of our voice for our potential healing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you for mentioning the didgeridoo as well, because that's such a powerful sound, isn't it? It's so primal.
Yeah.
And you're saying about, so yes, our voice, and there's no tone that's not right for us. That is the tone we're making. And if you have a didgeridoo, I've not played one myself, but I've heard the sound, and it's really powerful, and the vibration, like you're saying, and the overtoning that you can do. It's how did you come across a didgeridoo? How did you pick up and play and sort of integrate it into what you do?
Yeah. So I've never been to Australia. Um, and actually I was sat in a field in North Devon. I'd helped some friends. They wanted a fence built so that they could have some pigs. And yeah, we were sat around the fire one evening, and my friend brought his didgeridoo out and said, "Oh, you know, let's play the didgeridoo." So I learned then, and I was captivated by the sound. There's When you look at the frequency range of the didgeridoo, it's quite broad spectrum, and yeah, there's something. I like bassy sounds anyway. When I listen to music, my ears drawn to the bass, and that the didgeridoo just grabs me and is like, oh yes, this is something that I want to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's
Yeah.
wonderful. And I can only imagine how it sounds in the West Kennet long barrow end chamber if you're playing in there.
Yeah. It's interesting because for somebody who plays it, you don't you end up hearing something very different to somebody on the other end of the didgeridoo,
Oh,
because you've got
yes.
the vibration of your lips happening right in front of you. Then you've got the overtone vocals that go with it. So actually playing in West Kennet, you actually get to hear what other people hear. So for me, it's just like, wow. The only other place that you really get to hear that, this is going to sound a bit strange, but playing into an empty bath in the plug hole of a bath, because usually you've got tiled walls,
Yes.
and the bath, the plug hole, for some reason, helps amplify that sound, and that is probably as close as you're going to get to West Kennet. Go sing in the bathtub.
I love that. And oh my gosh, this conversation, it makes me want to go to Avebury now. And you're only 10 minutes up the road. Are you going today?
Yeah, I'm going tomorrow. I've got a busy day, so yeah, I'm not going to make it today, but my plan is to go tomorrow.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, yeah, have a lovely time. I can only imagine how it's going to feel. And do you notice anything different at different times of the day or the year, the seasons, the moon cycle?
Um, so in the winter, it's a very different energy
Hmm.
because there's less people visiting.
Hmm.
Um, I there are times where I really like it, and there are times where I kind of feel like it's missing something.
Hmm.
Um, in the summer, my favorite time is sunrise or pre-sunrise to
Oh,
go and visit.
yeah.
Uh, I quite like to wild camp in the area and then pack up while it's still dark and actually walk into Avebury whilst it's getting light. And that feels like the most magical time to go and meditate in Avebury.
Mm.
Uh, During those times, there's hardly anybody there.
Right.
And you've still kind of got that remnants of summer energy of lots of people visiting, but
Yeah.
it's more kind of calm and held down rather than can be a little bit flighty when there's lots of people there.
Yeah.
So that's my recommendation. If you want to go there and meditate, that's the time of day to do it.
Mm. Thank you. That's fantastic. And
Mm.
I wonder, because with the amount of stones in the main big circle, is it 98? Is there some sort of connection with the moon, the
Yes,
cycles?
98. Originally, there was 98, and that's 8 lunar years. For why, I don't know, but there's obviously a connection there with the moon, with lunar cycles.
Mm, mm. And I was looking at something Freddie Silver had written about there being some connection with a hill and the Milky Way sort of being represented by the shape of a particular hill. And there seems to be some connection with the cosmos. And maybe some of our listeners might have come across it, but there seems to be a connection with Sirius and Silbury Hill and Orion as well. And that reminds me a bit of the pyramids in the Nile, the as above, so below. Um, there's apparently there's this the Milky Way kind of rolls around to mimic the slope of Wadden Hill, and it's seen pouring itself into the summit of Silbury. Um, that's quite full of potential, I'd say, to explore more and just
Yeah,
to try and understand a bit more. So I'm personally on this journey of trying to understand the connection with the constellations and the sacred sites. And I know some wonderful people have been trying to map that. And there are different books out there. And so if anyone has anything to offer to this conversation, it would be lovely to hear because
yeah,
I feel like a beginner. Definitely got a beginner's mind, but I want to learn more and
yeah,
understand that deeper connection, that mystical, cosmic connection with we are of the stars. How can we bring that energy onto the earth and connect with our roots, so to speak, of who we really are? And yes, it's astrology and it's the constellations and it's there's a lot there to sort of remember or re-remember, I feel. Um, so yeah, I'm all ears. If anyone wants to offer any feedback and any comments or just get in touch. We would just love to hear any insights because we've each got our unique experience with Avebury.
mm,
And it's again infinite, isn't it? It's always going to be expanding, always going to be more that
Yeah.
we unfurl in front of us and notice and connect with. Um, I feel very grateful to be so close to such an amazing monument to the moon, to the stars, to the, our connection as humanity with the sky, the stars, our Mother Earth. Um, and it does feel magical to be there. It does. There is something there. Um,
Yeah.
and when you're walking with dowsing rods and you can see and feel the energies either through the rods or embodied, if you like, um, it's again a transformative experience to notice that, to get the feedback. Um, and yeah, it's I feel like an explorer when I go there. When you're just like, what's next, but also that stillness, like we talked about earlier. Is there anything else you'd recommend or any other stories you'd like to share for anyone who's considering tuning into or visiting Avebury?
Yeah. So Fifield Down, where the Sarsen stones were brought from, is just you kind of climb up to the Ridgeway, which is an ancient track up on top of a hill, and just go the other side. And there is a Fifield Down, and I think on Google Maps they call it Valley of the Stones.
Oh,
Literally, the whole place is just littered with stones. Every re-entrant in this valley has stones all the way through it. It's incredible. It really is. The biggest stone there is called the Toadstone, but I have a feeling that most of the stones are still predominantly under the ground.
mm,
And actually, as you come up from Fifield Down and kind of reach the peak of the hill,
mm.
I was running one day, I could see this straight stone row. So I ran over to it and had a look. And in that area, there's lots of round banks, round like earthworkings and earthworks that kind of wiggle their way across the land. Most of them you can't see by satellite.
Okay.
But on satellite view, I could see that there's a rough outline of Orion in stonework up on this downland before actually dropping back down the hill to Avebury. So there's definitely a connection there. And also the stone row that I could see pointed directly at West Kennet Long Barrow, that I could see in the distance. And it's one of those areas that I can keep going back to, that I can run through it every week and see something different.
Mm.
And that for me makes it such an exciting place to go to. Keep drawing me back and finding new things. And I'm sure I will keep finding new things and yeah, just keep feeling that draw to go back. So yeah, where do you start?
Yeah, it's an odyssey, isn't it? If you're keeping
Yeah,
going back and you're noticing new things, it's it's for a reason, and it's a powerful reason, and it's growth, isn't it? And expanded horizons and deepening of intuition and connection with the landscape, with our ancestors. And yeah, it's just very expansive. So yeah, it's been lovely to talk about Avebury today.
yeah, it has.
It's been quite a gentle conversation, hasn't it? And
Yeah.
a sort of bit like a gentle meander around the lovely
Like
stuff.
the River Kennet.
Yeah. Yeah. So um We hope you've enjoyed today's conversation about Dowsing in Avebury and what a magnificent site it is. And it can bring up different things for different people. And just what's your experience been? And are you planning on going? Have you been? Be lovely to hear. And thank you so much for listening.
Yes, thank you.